I am genuinely happy that Kiara referenced AI in one of her tweets, because this gives me an opportunity to talk about something that I have a lot of strong opinions and feelings about, and that is AI generated art. So to start off with, let's review what she said, some of the feedback she's getting, and then I'll get into some of my own experience and some of my own opinions. Let's get into what Kiara said. She said, as there is a rise in popularity for AI created art, I want to request everyone who makes use of these functions to not post their AI created art in my art hashtag, as it can be hard to differentiate in certain cases, and I would only like originally created art there. Which, let me jump in right here and say, even as someone who genuinely loves AI generated art, I still respect her opinion, and I think that's totally valid. The art tag is for original artworks, and she goes into a little bit more explanation here. Seeing as the AI art is cool, and many of them look nice, and they genuinely do, but as she uses these fan arts for thumbnails and other stuff sometimes, I want to be sure that what I'm using is real, so please understand. She wants to support the original artist because when they use a fan art in their thumbnails, they'll retweet them on Twitter and be able to give them credit. Now, we've got some responses here, and I'm not going to censor anyone's name, because I don't think anyone here is wrong or deserves to be trashed. I don't expect anyone to go attacking people, because this is an open conversation, right? This is a conversation that we should be having. Decia says, if it's hard to distinguish from real art and is derived from real art, how is it not real art? Now, I actually think this is a valid question. At what point do we draw the line with art? Is derived art still art? And Kiara responds, because it's using other people's art to create new art. It's cool for experimenting, but there are no real human hands behind it. Therefore, I can't support it, and it might get me into copyright issues if I do use it for thumbnails without knowledge of it being AI. Copyright, fair use is very vague as it is. And AI is a brand new technology. If a court case regarding AI went to court, we don't actually know how that would go. Editing Beals here with a little bit of clarification as to what exactly the law is. So the very first tenet regards the purpose and character of the use and calls out that it must be transformative, which if you're remixing someone else's art, you have transformed it. So that's check on number one. Number two, copyright protection does not depend on artistic quality or merit of work. So the fact that you put in very little work to create this transformative work does not matter. So that's 2 points in favor. The third factor, the amount of copyrighted work used is a factor. These AI generated images are often collages of many different pieces of work. It's extremely unlikely that the piece created used a substantial amount of just one piece of art. So that's 3 points in favor. The only point in this 4-point test that I feel like might go against copyright law is if this infringes on the copyright owner's ability to exploit his original work. So if your ability to replicate their work stops them from being able to then get further art because you can recreate it in a lab, if you can prove that this AI is damaging your income, then I think you would have a good case against that art. So far, I am not aware of anyone generating AI art who was able to use it in a way that impacted the original artist's work, but that is yet to be seen. This particular take doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's like everyone who creates fan art of your character is using someone else's art to make new art though. I think what they're referring to is the fact that Kiara had an artist create her avatar, so isn't everyone making fan art of her a derivative of her original artist? Which I would argue no. The key deciding factor there is that a human made it. And Kiara responds, are you saying a human using my character design as a reference to draw something from scratch with the skill they acquired over years by practice versus a computer throwing together random existing unrelated art without the artist's permission is the same? Which obviously it's not. They're trying to make the argument that all art is derivative, but the human element is the core element and simply cannot be ignored. And I think this discussion is spawning other discussions about, is photography art? You know, at what point is the machine doing all the work, and at what point is your input the art? I think these are all interesting questions. I would love to hear what everyone thinks in the comments. But now that we've gone through, you know, what Kiara's take is, what some of her fans' takes are, let's go into my opinion. So I personally love AI generated art to death, and I play with it a lot because I think it's a very interesting technology, and I like to see what the limits are, what it can and cannot do. So for example, I put in Ina's full name just to see if it knew who Ina was, and I'm using a Night Cafe here. It had no idea. It appears to have come up with some generic Chinese or possibly Japanese text. I don't know what this is supposed to represent, but a lot of text. And it didn't know who Ina was, but it did know who Greg Rutkowski is. And that's probably because he is actually a famous digital artist. One thing he's famous for is landscapes. And it was able to accurately recreate a landscape in his style. In my opinion, if I were to say post this image online, it would only be fair to me to give credit to Greg, because Greg's the one who created this style. We're remixing his art, even though I think I should have full freedom to transform his art in any way I see fit, because being transformative changes something from the original and makes it your own. That's still creatively valuable. But even if you're creating something of your own, when you're taking this heavy of an inspiration from someone else to the point where you're using their own name as a prompt, you should still be giving them credit because it's their art style. Imagine if you drew some fan art of Goku and then pretended Goku was your own original character, right? You can kind of see how that would be a little bit insane, trying to act like you invented Goku. Give credit if you're using their art style. Now, before I let you go, I want to pose one more question to you. So I went ahead and automatically generated 3 separate images. The prompt was Basilisk. I didn't put in an artist name, but obviously it's replicating another artist's work. So you've got one Basilisk, another Basilisk, and a third Basilisk, right? And you know, there's definitely an argument to be had that I didn't really do much to create this art. I literally just typed the word basilisk into a computer and it spat out a bunch of really cool images. Images that wouldn't have existed if I didn't put in that prompt, but there was no talent or skill that went into it. But even if we can agree that none of these images, as awesome as they are artwork by me, let me throw another layer on top of this. I mashed all 3 of those images together. I put color grades and filters and highlights and lowlights all over the image. I spent a couple of hours trying to make this image look the way I wanted it to. And in my opinion, this is art. This is handmade by me. I put time in, I put effort in, I put talent in to try and remix this into something I find visually appealing. So, do you consider this art? Or in your opinion, is this still just a computer spitting out a prompt? At what point of human involvement does an image become art? If you made it this far in the video, please answer that question. I want to know your opinions. At what amount of effort does a generated image become art? That's all I got for you today. I really like this topic. Bye, guys.